Hello, I'm Jessica, and this is Carolyn. Welcome to Yoga Asana Lab. Today we're going to look at back bending. So go ahead and start by laying down on your back and bend the knees so that the soles of the feet are flat on the floor. The arms can be alongside the body, resting on the floor. We're going to do a few exercises to sort of wake up the articulation of the spine. If you've ever seen a picture of a spine or a model of a spine before, you might be aware that it's made up of lots of individual bones, and between each of those bones, between each of those vertebrae, is a little space. So each vertebra, each joint, has the possibility for movement all along the spine. So we're going to experience some of those possibilities here in this reclined position. So I want you to start just by tipping your tailbone away from the floor. It's a pretty subtle movement. It's just a little articulation of the pelvis first. And then we're going to start rolling up through the spine, but I want you to try your best to move one vertebra at a time as best you can. So the tailbone lifts up, then maybe the sacrum pelvis area lifts up. Then you're going to slowly start to lift just one vertebra of the spine up away from the floor. You could almost imagine like if you had a beaded necklace resting on a dresser. If you were to pick one end of that beaded necklace up, imagine you just wanted to pick it up one bead at a time and see if you can get that sense of articulating each of the spaces between the joints. It's more challenging than it might seem at first. Most of us have movement patterns that involve much bigger movements. So you're gonna, once you get all the way to the top, you're gonna start from the top and you're gonna slowly lower one vertebra at a time all the way down. So keep working, and I'll speak for a few more minutes. So as you're articulating the spine, just notice each one of us is gonna have a place where it's difficult to find that articulation. We might be used to using the pelvis to initiate the movement, or we might be used to using the rib cage to initiate a certain movement. See how intricate and how delicate you can make the movements. So you can do that a few times on your own, just really exploring the spine from both directions. And then we're gonna take a similar exploration, but from hands and knees. So you can go ahead and come up and turn around, come to your hands and knees. So you can do this on your own. Having a friend to help you can be really illuminating. We're going to take some, what we usually call cat-cow, but usually when we take cat-cow, no matter how careful we're trying to be, usually we will rely on our most common pathway of movement. So for some of us, we'll use the pelvis to do a majority of the movement, or we'll use the head to initiate the movement, neither of which have anything to do with the spine itself. So if you're working with a friend, your friend, starting from a neutral spine, can start at the base of the skull and just lightly touching sort of one vertebra at a time. You're going to first move through flexion, which is rounding. So she's just going to flex one vertebra and then the next and then the next. And then when I spot her trying to move something that isn't where my fingers are, I'm going to give her a little extra physical signal. And we're going to go back to trying to just move one vertebra at a time. If you're helping your friend experience this, you don't get too specific. You don't have to actually literally find the vertebra in order to do it. Don't get lost in all that. If you just move the fingers about an inch or so at a time down the spine, you'll have it about right. Good. So we're going to go all the way down through the spine in flexion. And if you're doing this on your own, you can just imagine that tactile information coming in. And then we're going to come back to a neutral spine. And now we're going to go through extension, which is arching. So I'm going to start again at the base of the skull, and we're just going to go one little vertebra at a time, noticing when you're trying to borrow movement from somewhere else. And each of us will have parts that we can feel really well, and each of us will have parts that feel like more of a blind spot or that are more difficult to feel the movement. And that's okay. The point is not perfection. The point is for you to discover your own movement patterns and movement tendencies. Good. That's it. Great. And then let's stand up. So from a standing position, here's a challenge for you. We're going to roll down through the spine in this direction. Let me describe the movement before you do it. So we're going to start again at the base of the skull, and we're going to roll all the way down and all the way up. Try, if possible, not to go all the way to the place where you feel a stretch, what we normally call a stretch sensation, right? Now, if you do accidentally go there, that's okay. Just don't go there again, or don't go there on purpose. So see if you can stay just shy of feeling like a stretch going on in the back, okay? So we're gonna start, just go ahead and move your chin towards your chest. Yeah, that's great. And then slowly roll down. Again, see if you can move just one joint space at a time. Theoretically, we all have the ability and we all have the musculature to be able to articulate each and every joint space. We just don't always use it. Good. Keep going. So sometimes we use the sensation of stretch as a measure of how our practice is going. For that matter, sometimes we use effort as a measure for how our practice is going. But sometimes going all the way into the sensation, whether it's stretch or effort, sometimes going all the way to that big place isn't the most effective strategy. And then once you're almost all the way down, you can, again, roll all the way up. Yeah, and see if you can start again from the base of the spine and roll up. And see if you can play with some other kind of movement that doesn't involve going all the way to the extreme of stretch or all the way to the extreme of effort or contraction. I mean, your muscles will contract a little bit, but let's not go all the way to the extreme of the sensation. Good. Yeah. Let's go back onto hands and knees and do some cat-cows in our new way. So go ahead and come to hands and knees, and you're going to start at the base of the skull first. Start going through spinal extension and spinal flexion at your own pace, but again, try to notice those places where you tend to make bigger sweeping movements, and try to get even more articulate than you were yesterday in your spine or the week before that. Good. And especially, I would say, if you tend to be on the more flexible end of people, it might actually be a better strategy, like, not to try to go all the way into feeling a stretch. It actually might be a better strategy to try to feel a little bit of sensation in an infinite number of places rather than a lot of sensation in one or two big places. I find, especially in back bending, it's so tempting to try to do the whole pose just with the neck or just with the lower back. We end up kind of overutilizing the places where there's already a tremendous range of movement, and sort of underutilizing the other places that we're not used to using quite so much. So let's take those ideas and let's try some simple back bends at first. So we're going to stand up and bring your feet together. Stand right in the middle here. we're going to take just the very first back bend, right? We're going to take the first movement from a Jivamukti Sun Salutation. So I want you to do this movement the way you normally would. Forget everything you just learned for a minute. You're going to hook your thumbs in front of you. You're going to reach your arms up and you're going to arch back. Good. And what we normally, pay attention to where you normally go. In fact, take an internal snapshot and notice if you feel the experience in maybe one or maybe two really intense places, and then come on up and release your arms. Now let's rewrite our internal movement pattern. And instead of just going all the way back into your back bend, let's think about this more as an experience of feeling a little bit of sensation in a whole lot of places rather than one big sensation in the lower back or in the neck. So let's go. Hook the thumbs, reach the arms up, arch back, but try to feel a lot happening in a lot of different places rather than a big sensation in one particular place. And then lift up and release your arms. Hopefully that second experience was a little bit different. And I'd like to say it one more way and see if we can get even deeper into this idea. So this time, reach your arms up, hook your thumbs, reach your arms straight up. Don't arch back yet. What if this time when we do the movement, we think about this movement in terms of the length of the front side of the body versus the length on the back side of the body. And what I want you to do is just make the length on the front side of the body start to get longer. Yeah, and as you extend the front side of the body, it starts to overtake the length of the back side of the body. But it's not really about back bending, it's about front extending now. Good, come all the way up and release the arms. Good, so hopefully that'll shift sort of the experience of what we're going for in a back bend. And they have an unfortunate name, right? We call them back bending. But I like to think of back bending more as opening the front of the body rather than trying to bend the back. So let's take another pose. Let's lay down on the abdomen. Good. And go ahead and take the arms alongside the body at first. We're going to take Shalabhasana or locust pose. And again, forget everything you just learned. Lift up the head, chest, and legs. And take an internal picture of the locust pose and try to notice, like, where are you feeling most of the effort? Where are you feeling most of the stretch? And is it sort of one or two big places? And then slowly release down. And then let's try to shift that experience a little bit. So instead of going for height, instead of going for a big lift, I'd rather us go for a big length. So we're going to try to reach in opposite directions. Here's how we're going to do that. First, we're going to take the legs. And here's one thing that happens with the legs. Sometimes when we lift up the legs, there's a tendency to overuse the glutes. And what will happen when we overengage the glutes is that it'll cause a little bit of external rotation. So roll the legs out for me a little bit, honey. Yeah. Good. And as you roll the legs out, you could actually see the height of the backside get a little bigger. And that's causing the lower back to shorten a little bit. So we want a little bit more length in the backside of the body. So I want her to not have any external rotation on her legs. The way that we're going to do that is I want you to feel all 10 of your toenails pressing down into the floor, including the pinky toenail. Don't forget about him just because he's tiny. And then I want you to press the pinky toe knuckle, so sort of this part of the foot, down into the mat. And can you, while pressing the pinky toe knuckle into the floor, can you lengthen the big toes back like you want to touch the wall behind you? Now, keep that happening. Good. Nice long lower back, minimal recruitment of the glutes, and then try to keep the feet oriented that way as you lift both legs up. Aha. Well, I I see a little external rotation creeping in, so try to keep that to a minimum. Good. Nice long shape here, going for length, not lift. And then release down. Here's another way that we could start to feel more lengthening in the legs rather than height in the legs. Imagine that you have 2 paintbrushes attached to your toes. And imagine that you wanted to sort of reach the paintbrush back and paint a big stripe on the on the wall behind you. So we're going to sort of reach back and paint the brush upward. Ready? Reach back and try to paint. Yeah, good. That's it. Nice. Release. Good. Reach your arms forward now and press your hands down into the floor. Push your hands down and forward. Good. As you're pressing your hands down and forward, lift both legs up. That's it. Really nice. Good. Keep pushing your hands down and forward, down and forward, down and forward, down and forward. Get really long and then release down. Okay, now bring your arms alongside your body. Now let's bring back that idea of, instead of feeling like most of the effort in one place, most of the stretch in one place, let's try to feel the whole body participating. So a little bit of effort, a little bit of stretch in a whole lot of places. So go ahead, lift up. And even if you do go back to your normal pattern of using mostly your lower back or using your glutes or doing it with your neck, see what you can do to take some of the sensation and redistribute it through the pose. Good, release down. Part of it is that when we have a habit of using one place to do all of our movements, that's the place we go to, even in our yoga class. And when we're sort of overusing one part of the body, that could present a higher risk for injury in the long run, because we're just sort of relying on this one joint or this one, movement to do all of the work for us. So it can be a very interesting perspective shift for how we do our back bends and how we experience our back bends. So I encourage you to use that parameter of feeling a little bit in a lot of places for all the back bends and just see how it shifts the practice for you. Now let's go ahead and prepare the body to do some deeper back bends. So I'm going to have you sit up. Good. So now we've looked at the spine. We've looked at some of the attributes of the spine and how to make the movements of the spine work for us really efficiently and well in back bending. The other areas of the body that come into play with some of the deeper back bends are shoulders or upper back muscles and hips and hip flexors. So we're going to do a few exercises to get those things ready for practice. So go ahead and sit on a block so you're a little bit more comfortable. And we're going to take a belt. Yeah, you can just sit right on a block. Yep, like however you like. Yeah, sit in a comfortable seat, and then take this belt in your left hand, and then reach your left arm straight up to the ceiling. Great. Now take your right hand and bend your left elbow all the way around behind your back, like you want to touch the space behind your shoulder blades. Good. Pause here for a moment. So we don't want the chin to start to move down toward the chest. So we're going to push the back of the head into the upper arms in order to get the bottom part of the chin more parallel to the floor. But we also don't want to stick the lower ribs out to make that happen. So chin up, ribs back is what we're going for. Now, keep the left arm where it is. Take the right arm around behind the lower back and see if you can find part of your strap to hold. Good. Again, chin up, ribs back. And then maybe you can walk the hands a little bit closer towards each other. Perhaps the hands even connect behind the back. And if the hands connect behind the back, you can go ahead and just drop the strap behind the back and connect the hands together. Good. Chin up, ribs back. Breathe here for a few moments. Good. And then to release, reach the left arm up first. Bring the right arm alongside your body, and then left arm alongside your body. Now take the belt into the right arm. And then reach the right arm up to the ceiling. Use the left hand to help guide your elbow behind your head. Again, chin up, ribs back. So on this side, you can really see what we're looking for ideally is to have a nice, clean, solid line between the upper arm, the ear, and the side seam of her body. So you can actually see she's starting to poke her ribs out a little bit more. So I want to make as sort of vertical of a line between the upper arm and the side seam of the body as possible. Now you can reach the left arm around and try to hold a part of the strap. And then you can eventually start to wiggle the hands closer and closer together, eventually clasping the hands if possible. Chin up, ribs back. Good. And again, breathe, feel the breath. Good, and release that. Reach your right arm up, left arm alongside the body, and right arm alongside the body. Beautiful. I'm going to have you lay it on your back again. And separate the feet a little bit. Lift the back up away from the floor, just like we would if we were preparing for bridge pose. But in bridge pose, usually we take the hands and clasp them behind the back into a fist. And that's okay for a lot of reasons. That's a great way to take this pose. But because we're going to practice for a big, deep back bend, I actually want to give the shoulders a little bit more preparation. So I'm going to have you separate your hands and then make like hitchhiker thumbs, 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up for half wheel. And then stretch your arms long. Okay, do your best to keep your elbows completely straight the whole time. You're going to start to raise the arms up alongside the ears and try to touch the tops of your thumbs to the floor behind your head. Keep the arms parallel and keep the arms parallel and keep the elbows straight. Good, that's it. If the elbows start to bend, then that's a little bit of a cheat. So just stop before the elbows start to bend. So for example, if the upper back is a little on the tighter side and the elbows start to bend as you raise the arms up overhead, then just hover here and work on keeping the arms straight rather than trying to touch the thumbs to the floor and the elbows are bending. Okay? So do that a few times. Raise and lower the arms, keeping the elbows straight. Go as far as you can until the elbows start to bend. And if the elbows can stay straight the whole time, go ahead and touch the thumbs to the floor. Perfect. Good. Okay, so when you're done with a few rounds of that, then go ahead and release. So we've done a couple of preparations for the upper back shoulder area. Now I'd like to start to prepare the hip flexors and the fronts of the legs. So one of the ways that I like to do that is with Virasana. So go ahead and come to sit up. Yep, and bring your knees all the way over here. Good. Bring the knees together and separate the feet. And then you're going to want to sit down between the feet. Now, if the seat isn't coming to the floor yet, then I want you to sit up on a block. And we're going to show that version first. So you're going to sit right on your block. The block has multiple settings. You can even use multiple blocks. But make sure that you're not feeling any pain in the knees. If you're feeling pain in the knees, either modify this position or skip this pose entirely. Okay, so even if you're on a block, you're going to bring your fingertips to the floor behind you. And here's the technique. You're going to lift your hips up, and then you're going to tip your pelvis forward. So it's like you're trying to push your tailbone towards the center of the body. Imagine, like, go back to your pelvic tilt. Good. So you see the creases in the fronts of your legs. When you lift your pelvis up, it's almost like you want to take those creases out of the front of the legs. So that's how we're going to work. And if you're still sitting on a block, in Virasana, then I just want you to stay on your hands and keep working on that pelvic tilt, stretching and opening the front of the legs here. Okay, go ahead and sit back down. Now we'll show a version without the block. So I'm going to take the block away. Carolyn's got a good seat on the floor. She's going to start exactly the same way. She's going to do exactly the same thing. She's going to lift her hips up and tilt the pelvis so it's like you're trying to push the pubic bone and the tailbone forward. And then she might lower the seat a little bit closer to the floor. If she can come to her elbows, great, amazing. If not, staying on the hands is also a great way to work. So even now on her elbows, from inside her body, she's still working on lengthening the front side of her legs. And then Carolyn's going to come all the way to her shoulders. If you're not there yet, don't worry. Keep working. And even here, even in this reclined position, I want you to avoid feeling a big sensation in the lower back. One of the tells is if the ribs are poking way up or if there's still a big crease in the front of the hips. As long as she's able to keep pulling the tailbone forward and keep pushing the ribs back, most of the experience should be of opening the front of the body or extending the front of the body. It shouldn't feel like a big lower back bend, right? Okay, good. So we're feeling good, opening the front of the body, no lower back sensation. Super. Okay. Carolyn, go ahead and give me your hands, and we're going to come right back up. And then I'm going to have you lay on your abdomen again. So to get a little deeper into the hip flexor area, opening up the fronts of the legs for back bending, we'll take half frog. So set up on your forearms. Good. And bend the right knee, reach back and hold the instep side of the right foot. And then start to push your foot down towards your outer right hip. Now, eventually the elbow is going to bend up to the ceiling, and you might be able to flip the fingers around to face over the toes. If all of that isn't happening today, don't worry. You also don't want the foot to be winging way out to the side. You actually want the heel to be no more than about a finger's width distance from the side of your hip. And you want sort of all of the toenails to be going straight up to the ceiling. Good. And then release, and then we'll take the other side. So bending the left knee, bringing the left hand to the inside of the left foot, push the left heel down alongside the outer left hip. And again, it's really critical that you not let the left foot fly off to the side of the body. You want to keep it really, really close to that left hip. Good. Okay, and then release. Great. And then flip over onto your back again. Okay, this time I'm going to have you lift up, and I'm going to put a block under your sacrum. So go ahead. There we go. So you want the block, the sacrum is a sort of hard, flat part of the back of your pelvis. You want the weight of the pelvis to feel like it can sort of rest flat on that block as best as possible. In other words, it shouldn't be on the lower back or the vertebra of the lower spine. Okay, so from here, lift up your left heel, just the heel. And then with your left hand, grab your left foot and try to bring your left toes all the way to the side of your left hip. Good, and then you're gonna flip your foot over so that it's pointed. Oh, Carolyn's very good at this one. So from inside your body, feel like you could reach your left knee forward towards the wall in front of you. At the same time, push your foot down into the floor. Good. As you reach the knee forward away from you, it might drift closer to the floor, but you're not thinking about pressing the knee down. You're instead thinking about reaching the knee forward, and then as a result, it might go closer to the floor. Okay, grab hold of your ankle and then place your foot back where it came from. Let's do the right side. So lift the right heel, grab your ankle, pull your foot all the way back to your outer hip, and then flip it over so it's like that Virasana foot, pointed foot. And then as you reach the right knee forward, it might come closer to the floor. It might not today. That's okay. And push the top of your foot down into the floor. So Carolyn's making this look very easy. For me, the fronts of my legs and my hip flexors were one of the biggest obstacles for back bending. So these 3 exercises will be very useful for getting into your full back bend. Okay, grab your ankle and put your foot back where it came from. Good, lift your hips up. And I'll take this away, and then we'll get set up for back bend. So, go ahead and roll to one side. I'm gonna set up these bolsters underneath you. Okay. Go ahead and sit on the bolster there. And then lay down on your back. Great. Your head can drape off of the bolster behind you. So if full back bend isn't available yet, or if you're still working on it, or if you just want to have a juicy, delicious experience, this next pose will get us ready for that. So I'm going to take 2 belts. I'm going to take 1 belt and loop it around the legs. So give me your feet. There you go. I'm going to loop it right around the middle of the upper legs. And then I don't want the belt to be very tight. In fact, if I were to use my sort of yoga x-ray vision, I would sort of want her thigh bones to be parallel to one another. So not so tight that it's squeezing the legs together, but just tight enough that it can kind of hold them in a parallel position. And then I'm going to have Carolyn extend both legs out along the mat. Good. And you want to sort of reach the heels along the mat. So can you flex your feet strong? Feel like you can reach your heels out 1 centimeter further, and then slowly relax the legs. And if you relax the legs slow enough, it keeps those heels right in place. If you release too fast, the heels will just slide back where they came from. I'm going to take the second belt and take them around your arms. Good. Right above the crease of the elbows is perfect. And then let the arms sort of relax above the head. I also like to take a block and just hold a block between my hands. That helps me to feel like I can straighten my arms a little better. And it helps with the belt around the arms want to sort of come together. So it helps me keep my hands a little bit more separate. So this is a wonderful preparation for back bending. Here we're having the hip flexors get a little extra opening. We're having the lats and the muscles of the upper back have a little extra opening, and we're feeling that length, that total extension all the way across the body. So after you've stayed like this for a few minutes, then you can go ahead and take yourself out of it. Okay, let's take that other belt and take it off. So you can stay on the bolster for now. So if we start our back bend from a little bit of a higher height, it can take some of the effort of pushing up out of it. So it can be very helpful, especially if you're starting out, to lay on some bolsters or to, stack up some blankets and start from a little bit above the floor. So that's right. You can bring your feet to the floor. The feet can be about bolster distance apart. They could even be a little wider at first. And then you're going to reach your arms straight up to the ceiling first. Yep, she's already doing it. Flex the hands back so that you can see the fingernails like you're trying to check out your manicure. Fan your fingers out, and then keep the hands like that. Just bend the elbows and place your hands on either side of your head. You don't want your hands too close. You could take some width between the thumbs and the ears, and then just rotate your feet. Yeah, point your elbows straight up to the ceiling. So make sure you could see without looking to the left or right. Make sure you could see the elbows with your peripheral vision. Then just lift the hips up first. Good. Now with the hips lifting up, you can readjust your hands, make any other adjustments you need, and then push down to lift all the way up. Good. Beautiful. So again, see if you can take a little internal snapshot of your back bend and notice, like, hey, am I feeling all of the whatever it is I'm feeling in the lower back? Do I have too much stress and tension in my neck? What's going on here? And then go ahead and release down. Good. Beautiful. Okay, take a nice rest. So the more intense the back bend becomes, the harder it might be to feel a little bit of work in a lot of places. Because the more intense the back bend gets, the more we rely on our usual patterns of movement. We sort of pick up our go-to tools from the toolbox. But nonetheless, we're going to try. So we're going to do a second wheel. I'm actually going to take you off the bolsters, and we're going to try from the ground up. And this time when you come up, see what you can do to sort of redistribute the energy. So you have a nice sort of flow of energy and effort all across the body, rather just the lower back or just the neck or something like that. Okay, so go ahead, place the hands, place the feet. Good. And then go ahead, lift up. Beautiful. That's it. Good. So you might have to shift some weight into the feet, shift some weight into the hands. You might think about trying to pull the base of the skull away from the tail to make more length at the back side of the body. Okay, when you've been there a few breaths, chin to chest, slowly come down. Good. Good. Okay, and then always after back bending, do a couple of movements to neutralize the spine. So the first thing that we'll do is we're not going to hug the knees all the way into the chest, which would be deep flexion, but we're going to sort of pull the knees into the chest in a way that the lower back can start to return to neutral. So if you think about putting one hand on each kneecap, and then instead of hugging the knees close, you sort of let the arms go straight with the weight of the legs hanging in the arms. That's really good way to come out of back bending. And then after a few breaths like this, you'll want to take a twist. So you can take the knees to the left side and twist to the right. And again, some twisting is going to help just to relax the muscles along the spine and help to neutralize after all that intense back bending. Okay, you can come back to the center and then go ahead and go the other way. I like to open the palm of my hand up to the ceiling. It just sort of gives the shoulder that last little communication to roll back and down. And then bring the knees back to the center. And come on up to seated position. Great. So I hope that those ideas were helpful and interesting for your back bending practice. Remember, if you're new to back bending, start with the easier back bends first and slowly work your way up. You'll want to gain some flexibility in the spine, but also some flexibility in the upper body and in the fronts of the legs to accommodate those deeper back bends. Thank you so much for watching.